Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Have you made silence your friend? Welcome to episode number 87. Today, I'm talking to Shelah Marie. She's a meditation teacher with a large following online geared towards African American women. In this recording, we're going to talk about the power of self-awareness, how to transform guilt and shame. We're going to dive into the psychology of body image and the empowerment of being naked. She'll detail how she went from someone who was burnt out and had self-worth issues to someone who transformed all of that through meditation. So sit down, relax, and take in this beautiful recording. Shelah, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
How has meditation changed your life?
How has it not changed my life? I think that I come from a background where chronic anxiety was normal, high stress, trauma, a lot of criticizing ourselves, depression, severe anxiety, all of that. So for me, meditation it just opened a door into a new way of living that I didn't know existed. I didn't know was even possible. The first step that meditation, what allowed me to really shift my whole life with meditation was allowing me to hear my inner voice, which I realized was always running like a radio in the background all the time. But meditation allowed me to be like, oh, like I say some pretty mean things to myself. Like, I don't know if this is okay. And from there, I was like, all right, what do I have to do? What's yoga? What's therapy? And like all of that. But meditation was the first step in allowing me to feel like I had some type of control over my life and not just feeling like a victim of my circumstances, I would say.
The observation level goes way up, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Like being self-aware is like a superpower, I think. And if in my life I've noticed, not only with me, but I feel like self-aware people are very attractive.
Yeah.
We like people who are comfortable to be transparent. When I say self-aware to me means I'm aware of the way that I show up in the world and I can flex with it. Like I am not just here and not being aware of what I'm doing. I notice like for me, for example, like the posts on social media, the videos that I do that get the highest level of engagement are ones with a level of self-awareness. And I can say, hey, I was wrong when I said that before, or I know that this might look like such and such, but this is what I'm doing. Or, you know what I'm saying? When I can comment on it, it invites people to do the same for themselves. And I find that a lot of people are looking for that right now.
Yeah. And, your brand is, it stands out. Curvy Curly Conscious movement.
Yes. Well, my company is called Curvy Curly Conscious, which was born out of, I just was using a hashtag called #Curvy and Curly. Like that was just how I started on Instagram. I started by sharing pictures of like, so I lived in New York at the time when Instagram, I was just starting on Instagram. This was early in Instagram, but like life. And they only had pictures at that point. There was no other features. And I'm curvy. I was always curvy my whole life. And I always felt that I didn't have control over the way people perceived my body. I was always over-sexualized in my view all the time. In New York, if you're walking on the street and if it's the summer and you have a sundress on, it can feel you don't feel safe. It can feel violent even, like,
Yeah.
There, so whatever. And especially where I lived in Crown Heights at the time in Brooklyn. So, it was people out there. People are out. People are having a good time. So yeah. I felt that, hey, on Instagram, though, I can wear what I want. I can wear what I want. I can dress however. I want to wear a bikini and show my curves. I can do that. And I can control the way that people engage with me. So that's where I started talking about my issues with body acceptance. I started talking about depression and anxiety using the hashtag Curvy and Curly. And it just grew from there. We started doing in-person events, and that led to us touring, and that led to us doing international retreats, and that led us to where we are today, where we have like an online community of over 400,000 women, and allies and supporters, mostly Black women, but allies and supporters as well, that we're just interested in living happier and healthier and showing up.
That's what I was going to say, is because I know a gentleman by the name of Kelvin Young. He's been on this podcast twice, Black dude, and he was in jail at one point. He turned his life around. He came out. Now he's a sound healer. Now he helps people with recovery from drugs, and he's a big part of my community here in Hartford. Wow. And one of the things that he always says is, he's like, I grew up and I thought meditation was for Buddhists. He's like, I thought yoga was for hippies.
Me too.
And he's like, in the Black community, it's not
a thing. Yeah.
So now I see someone, I see you who has a great following on Instagram, and you just said most of your audience is African-American women. Mm-hmm. So you're providing something that, you know, they might have not been in tune with before.
You know, it's not an accident that a lot of Black Americans and Black people across the diaspora are Christian. That's not an accident. That was a tool of colonialism. It's a tool of control. Not to say that the religion is, but the way that it was forced on us, right?
Dispersed, yeah.
So it is heavy in African American community to this day in the U.S. And I do get a lot of women that are like, hey, like, is yoga devilish? Like, can I still be Christian and do yoga? Like, what's all these spells and stuff like that? Are y'all talking to demons and spirits? Are you praising? Are you worshiping? Like, do you worship trees? Is that against the Bible? Like, all of these questions, right? And it's like, I understand, because I came from a Christian background as well. And I even me, like, meditation started, even in the beginning, I was like, is this okay? Like, hey, God, like, am I all right here? Yeah. And so what I do is I really just gently guide my community, not into any way that I want them to go, because I don't even like the term followers, like, because I don't have followers. That's not my platform. People don't follow. My platform is, people are, well, there are some people are there just for the pictures and just to be nosy about my relationship or whatever. But like a majority of people are there because they are also developing their own cognition, intuition. They're critically assessing who they are in the world. And so I don't like followers, because I don't want to lead you anywhere. Really, I'm just here to introduce you. So I think that me being not only a model, which is like, I am you, I am your community, I understand where you came from. I have been on a similar journey like you, and I am practicing meditation, and I'm talking about it, and my family knows, and they talk about it. And so it's like, it invites them to also explore their own journey. And when I first started sharing meditation, I got a lot of backlash from my personal family and friends, who were like, you know, saying those things like, oh, well, we worship Jesus over here. I don't know what that is, honey. And now they ask me, can you meditate with me? Can you show me meditation? How do you do it? Because it's like, to me, the proof is in the way that I show up. Like, anybody who knows me on a personal level will see how much I have changed and how much I have been able to invite more happiness and help. Like, if on the women's side, my mother and the women on her like side of the family are all having to use some type of medication to get through daily functioning. And there is no such thing as like a happy, healthy marriage on that side. And so like my family will look and be like, hey, like, there's definitely something here that's different. And they are open to it. Some, you know, people who choose. But for me, I just tell my community, I think women, I speak to women because I just feel called divinely to speak to women. I have a love for humanity at large, but like, I speak to women and I'm like looking around and I'm like, I think we deserve better than what we have. I think we deserve joy and happiness. And
I think it's a great service. And let's stay with one of the topics you just brought up, because it's talked about on this podcast so often, is that in Christianity, mostly, don't want to single the whole thing out, but mostly it's very much my way or the highway.
Yeah. That's
And
another thing, yeah.
me as a health practitioner for 10 years, I can't tell you how many super Christians come to me with anxiety, depression, and it's like, it doesn't seem like Jesus is helping you because you're
Gosh.
stuck in a belief
Yes,
instead of an experience.
I like that. They're stuck in a belief instead of an experience.
And so
Absolutely.
meditation is an experience,
I love that.
and you're proof of that.
Yeah, people will tell you about their beliefs all day, but you'll like, I don't want you to tell me, like, show me how that belief shows up in your life, and like, how does that work for you?
Right.
For me, I can speak for myself personally. I have always been a person that asks questions. When I was young, they gave me a book of questions for Christmas. I've always been I'm a person to question everything. And I remember reading the Bible, looking through the Bible, listening to what they're telling me. Okay, so wait, God is a jealous God? But why is God a jealous God? God created everything, like stuff like that didn't. I felt like, but you guys seem like the jealous ones, not him. God is angry at us, but I thought we were created in His image. So I used to get in trouble for asking these questions, like, why would you create us in your image only to destroy us? If only those who can fit through the eye of a needle. So everybody was made just to fail. You love us that much, but you that mad at us? Like, hold on. So I started to think, like, a lot of this, if God is love, and that was the thing that stuck to me, love. If God is love, I want to actually feel and experience a little bit more of that. I feel like there's a lot of judgment and shame. And that, I feel like, is the most detrimental part of dogma and like practicing any religion hardcore, is that it doesn't allow for you to really experience the fullness of humanity, and it leads down a one-way road to guilt and shame. And when I meet women, I know that guilt and shame, in terms of frequency in your bodies, the area of our bodies that we hold guilt and shame, women, is in our womb area, our solar plexus. Like, so fibroids, all type of issues, womb health issues, not being able to experience orgasm, not being able to experience sexual pleasure, so much guilt and shame around sex, around your body, around desire, around the way you show up in the world. And I, throughout my own spiritual journey, realized how much guilt and shame separates us from love. It separates us from people. It separates us from joy. You know what I'm saying?
It's a blockage, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just wanted more of that. And I experienced the most connection and the most joy when I work through a non-judgmental lens. And that's a staple of a Curvy Curly Conscious community. Like, if you go to any event that I produce, any of my retreats, that's what I'll do immediately. The first thing when we walk in the door, the first day of the retreat, is always reminding them of the world that we want to see. And this is a world, even if I can only create it for 8 hours, even if I can only create it for 6 days, is a world where women do not harshly judge themselves and each other. And I have to tell you, it's my favorite thing on earth. It's my favorite thing. It's such a sublime experience to see people tripping up and going, oh yeah, I forgot, I'm not judging. My bad. Hold on, I'll come back. Or, it's all of a sudden in an environment where a lot of women go, can I come to the retreat by myself? Like, I'm kind of scared. By the end of the 6 days, I can't tell who's who. I thought y'all came together. You guys don't know each other. You didn't grow up together. People are like, is that your belly button ring? Oh my God, is that your C-section scar? That's so cool. That's mine too. You can feel like, I can't change the world. I can't change government. I can to an extent, but it feels
Change
so
yourself.
Yeah. I could just create little pieces, little pockets, starting with ourselves, which is why you have Inner Peace podcast, I'm sure.
That's right.
Because that's really where we start, when someone will ask me, like, how do I deal with this, all of the anxiety around our government? How do I deal with the racial unrest in this country? Oh, I can't change everybody. I can't promise you nobody's going to come and say, hey, I'm sorry for being a jerk to you. Hey, I'm sorry for that. I can only work one by one on starting from the inside. And that's why me practicing what I preach is so important to my community.
A huge gem there with the guilt and the shame. Before we unpack that, though, I want to go back to the Bible real quick, because it's greatly not understood that in order to really understand the Bible, you have to look at it with a mystical eye.
Ooh.
And
What do you mean by that?
well, it's written by mystics, so it needs to be understood.
Where did we lose that? Where did we lose that? Because I don't know if I knew that.
The Roman Empire hijacked it. 300 years after Christ, the Roman Empire hijacked it, changed it up and just dispersed it. But, this is one of the, advantages of a tradition such as Kabbalah, where you can really understand the Bible, or even if you get into Buddhism or Taoism or any of the Eastern traditions, once you start understanding, then you can read the Bible in a different way. So I'm only saying that to say that.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. I don't know why. I think that's what I did. I didn't know it.
Yeah, you don't have to know it. It's just most people grow up in a Christian tradition, and it's delivered to us by the priest, depending on what tradition you're in. And it's just the word. It's just promoted as that's the word. That's just the word. That's it.
Yeah.
But there's so much mysticism behind it, like the kingdom of heaven is within you. Things like this, right? So
yeah, it reminds me of, was that from Conversations with God? Where he said that the real Holy Trinity is the word, the emotion, and something else like that. Like when you're reading, I guess all I remember clearly is that you can't just read the text and interpret it, because everyone can have their own interpretation. 10,000 people could read one sentence, everybody could get a different thing out of that sentence. But what is your inner guidance in your kingdom is, how do you feel? Like your emotions are like the bridge, which in my mind, emotions are your divine inner guidance, which I feel like it's really sad that a lot of emotions have gotten this like bad rap, like, oh, we're going to get rid of them. I'm business. I'm smart. I don't think emotion. I don't get like emotions are a negative thing. It's, to me, I think they're our strength and guidance. So I guess if you're reading, let's say, if it's any holy text, and then meditating on how you feel about those words, and maybe like seeing if there's any other divine guidance on what those words may mean for you. That's what I started doing, that I didn't even realize it until you said it, is at first I rejected all religion. And I was like, all of this.
Same here.
So I don't want any of it. I'm free. I'm going to do my own spiritual thing. And then now I'm at the place where I'm like, well, I think there's a function. There's a function for religion. And I think when I look at the Bible and I read it, I'm like, wow, all of this is parable. These are stories, and they all make sense to me now in a different way.
It's poetry. It really is.
Like Shakespeare, or, I'm a theater nerd. Like I read plays, and, when you're reading a play, I was telling my husband the other day, I'm like, me growing up as a playwright and a person who studies theater has fundamentally changed the way I see the world. If I'm reading a play, I'm thinking about how the writer or the playwright described their clothes. What do they have on? What colors is she wearing? What's her hair like? Why did she come in the room first? But she's in the room, she didn't say anything. Are the doors, is there light in the room? Oh, okay, it's dark. That means there's a brooding. It's just that I'm always saying, like, there's a story to be told that is not only through the text. And so even if I'm looking around at TV or movies or people, that there are always messages and symbols. I think that the main thing I got maybe through meditation is like, because our subconscious communicates in symbols as well. And so I feel like when I look at the world, I just think that all of this is symbols, and even our lives. We play our lives out like a play. We create characters, we create stories, arcs, victims, and we do this. And so that's another thing too, that I kind of like really try to promote, is a little joy throughout the whole process. I think that the space that I occupy in the wellness field or whatever is very playful. I'm not a person that takes all of this too seriously or myself too seriously, because I feel like for me it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
And if I could just sometimes take it with like kind of a playful lens, I'm like, oh wow, I am showing up as XYZ today. Okay, well, let me just play with this and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think it's easier. It's hard if you're like, gotta get it right.
Well, life's not as serious as we think it is.
This is true. sometimes I'm like, none of it matters. Hello, Buddhism. Like even detachment, thinking about all of that. Sometimes, you know what? That's so funny. When I lived in New York, I was so much more driven, but in a toxic way. Like, you know, grinding myself to the core. That's the New York energy. Didn't have any fun. Well, I had fun, but it was still a lot of work. And now I'm at the place where I work in a very measured way, and I definitely have boundaries around my personal time, my space, my joy, because I'm like, at one level, all of this matters, and then at one level,
it doesn't. And let me unpack something else that you said like 5 minutes ago or so. I'm taking mental notes here.
I love it.
You talked about men hooting and hollering while you're walking down the street with a sundress on, right? So that's the normal sort of reaction of this new era, if you will. So that's the opposite of body shaming. That's body, what would be the word? Glorification, maybe? So there's two sides of the coin there. There's body shaming, and there's body glorification or body worship, maybe.
Definitely does feel like a form of worship, although it feels like the word is not violent. The word I want is
aggressive.
I was thinking about aggressive, but there's even a better word, that it feels that there's no boundaries within it. Like it's not worship on your own terms. It's like,
well, we're in this weird place right now because women who have these miraculous bodies, they're not afraid to show them on social media. Like, you know, as soon as I sign into Facebook and I hit, you know, the story thing pops up and it's one woman after another. It's like, I don't know if I'm on a dating site. I don't know where I am. I don't know. It
definitely ain't safe to open up Instagram. Sometimes I'm like, oh, well, hey there. Okay.
the stories have changed the game. The stories feature.
Yeah, it has.
And so I don't know. I mean, I have an idea psychologically of what a woman's trying to do there. She's looking for the hearts, looking for the positive emojis. The DMs are crazy. I mean, they got to be nuts.
Yeah. It's also a site of power, though. Like if you're a woman and you don't have that many opportunities in life where you can control the exact circumstances around which your body is perceived. If you go out, you know, a guy, like you said, like it's unwanted worship too. Like you could go out and just be wanting to wear a sundress because you like it and it feels good to you, but you can't, because if you go out, they're going to say, well, you shouldn't wear a sundress if you ain't want me to say nothing. And then, you know, trying to grab your arm and then stop you. And then it's very disruptive. It does not feel safe at all. But now I feel like Instagram changed the game. I used to talk about this a lot, about why I used to post pictures like that in the beginning, because it is us accessing power. When have women been able to control their image in this way? Never, never. You've never been able to put yourself out to millions of people exactly the way you want. And so I feel like a lot of women are just wanting to experience that site of power, what it feels like to put this out and get the reaction I want, or to put this out and to get that type of attention. And attention, I don't think there's anything wrong with attention. I used to say that in the very beginning of like, what is wrong? Yes, we want attention on our terms. It's totally different from
on
attention that's unwanted. On our terms, absolutely. Attention on our terms is safe. It's comfortable. It's nice. Right. It's like consent with anything. Attention on your terms might not feel safe and nice to us. You know what I'm saying?
Can it become addicting though?
Anything can become addicting, especially forms of validation. So any forms of validation can become addicting, like celebrity, yes, anything. Because
I joke around a lot that, you know, I have the most beautiful women in the world in my DMs, but they're there because they have anxiety. They're not there for the phone number.
Wait, they're writing you to help to...
A lot of them have anxiety issues or depression issues. So, you know.
So is it like your belief? Okay, so I'm trying to walk down your thought pattern right here. So is it that if a woman is putting herself out in that way, you're saying there must be not a negative reason, but it's like, it seems like a deficiency somewhere.
Well, not with all women. But what I'm saying is I've encountered a lot of women
that they have.
Very beautiful. You go on their page and it's all very sensual. They're very but they're suffering from anxiety, depression. And so it's alarming.
It's kind of like, so when I started dating Ace, I remember the first time that I met up with him and his friends, they were like saying something like, oh yeah, you know, because all the girls we meet, they only want for money or for this, and you know, they're only about using their bodies. And I'm like, okay, so where are you looking for women? Are you going to Bible study or like the library? Oh, you're at the club, right? Oh, what's that chain around your neck, right? What is it? Let me look at, you have Gucci, you have all, so it's like we're all animals communicating symbols. So if you know, it's like the same thing for guys of posting up, you know, your cars or whatever, you're sending symbols of like, I have power, right? I have access to power. I have money. Look at me. I have status. And maybe I feel like women too are like, well, we want in on this too. You know, I'm going to, you know, a lot of them are like, I'm going to use the tools around me also to create my own sites of power, my own ability to create income for myself. Shout out to OnlyFans. I think it's great. I'm not ever going to be on OnlyFans because it's not my vibe, but I'm on Patreon. It's similar. You know what I'm saying? OnlyFans just has a sexual, sensual slant to it. But I think that I like the fact that women are being able to control the way that they earn income, the way that they're seen, and the way that people interact with them. And I think that men have been doing it for so long, and it can feel like you said alarming, and I'm like, yes, it's true. But then I also feel like the same way about celebrity in general, being in the public eye in general, influencers in general, like across the board, regardless of gender. I can see how it can be addicting. Like you'll see people, you'll be like, you could see them going down and like, ooh, why is she doing that? Oh, okay. Like, you know, and two, anyone who puts themselves out for consumption by the public, in some ways you get commodified, you know, in some ways the world treats you like, something to just be consumed. You're not necessarily fully human anymore. Like even the way people expect influencers to put out content.
Like a product,
yeah. You just become something to be consumed like everything else in this society.
There is another side to this too, though. There's the side of vulnerability. When we become open, you know, we can use social media as a device to be vulnerable. And that opens up our heart. Sometimes we have to do it. I had a gentleman on this podcast named Ken Fried. He wrote a book on his penis size being small.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord.
Because he needed to overcome his body shame. To become.
That's a lot to unpack. I feel like I even need someone smarter than me to really unpack that, because that's a lot. Because I'm thinking, oh, men can't make their penis, like men can't do anything without their penis being the center of it. Like even though where I used to live in Tallahassee, where I went to Florida State, the Capitol is a phallic symbol, like with balls and everything. And I'm just like, wow, men cannot make. Can men experience life? Can men work through things without their penis being at the center of it? No. And I'm not saying you said no. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for that man. No, I was kidding. That's a tough one.
He needed to do it. He needed to do it to heal, and he feels great. He feels great now. You know,
put himself out there like, yo, this is what it is. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, that's definitely bold.
And he's a coach. He helps people. So, I mean.
Wow.
So.
Well, yeah, that is definitely a level of being vulnerable, because.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's a site of definite insecurity for a lot of men. And
we live in this society where body shaming is like the deal. Like.
I know. It's insane.
It's bad. And I think men, if we're venturing on this topic, we're hidden. You're not. It's hidden. When you walk down the street, it's like, oh wow, look at those curves. You know, wow, look at her. When a guy walks down the street what's a woman looking at? She's looking at, his face, or I guess you could.
We're probably scanning you for all of the signals you're giving off,
Yeah.
What does your facial hair look like? What do your teeth look like? Your eyes, like, are you healthy? Do you look like you get a lot of sleep? Like, this might not be on a conscious level, but I feel like, what happens in a split second is like scanning someone, like, are they biologically good to carry on the species? Like, could I reproduce with them? Would they be able to take care of me? Like, would they be alive? And men are doing the same thing. Like, that's why you would focus on the body. Like, does she have hips? Like, could she bear children?
But the penis is hidden.
That's very true. Yeah.
So
but all of that other stuff I said isn't. We're still looking at you for socioeconomic signifiers and status symbols. You know what I'm saying? A guy stepping out of a black SUV. It's like, oh, he might be somebody. Okay.
Right. Right.
It's all of that. It's just a big game. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the first retreat I did was at a clothing optional resort, and it was my favorite because there was a whole side of the resort where you had to be naked if you were on that side. You could choose to be whatever on the other side. You could be half, you could be whatever. But most of us spend our time on the complete nude side, even those who thought they wouldn't. Why? Because it was so free. Like, you didn't have any of those signifiers. You didn't have any clothing symbols and what are you wearing. Nobody cared about what your body looked like. All of it went out the door.
Right.
Because you realize, like, everybody has something. Well, she has cellulite. Well, she has this. Well, he has this. It's just, it was like such a free and different, non-judgmental space. It was so cool.
It's such an empowerment.
Yeah.
Like, I think of the great spiritual master, George Gurdjieff, who said his father gave him 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, wake up with the sun. Number 2, go dance naked. And that was it. That was it. So
just don't want to dance naked everywhere, and I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So if you're able to just dance naked, and this is what Ken was talking about on that podcast episode. He said that he was missing out when him and his friends, would go to the spring and everyone's jumping in naked or whatever. And he'd be like, I don't know about this, and so he had to free himself. So this retreat that you're talking about with the women being naked, women go through body shame way more than men for the most part, because you're not hidden.
Yeah.
Everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is there. And we're in this society where, the Kim Kardashians, the Nicki Minaj's, the body shapes are, it's not like it was when I was in high school. I don't know what changed, but
yeah, I think they were always there. I feel like it's so much more visible and emphasized now. And then also too, surgery, it just got cheaper and they got better. And so a lot of people are doing it now. I live in Florida. I live in South Florida, and everybody down here gets work done. It's so it's so common that people don't believe that I haven't had work done, because it's just such a standard body type down here. It's everywhere.
You had body worship pretty much your whole life, like guys hooting and hollering all the time, right? When the other woman walks by who is not curvy, she automatically, assuming she hasn't come to grips with it, but she might have body shame just by looking at someone such as yourself, right?
Yeah, a lot of women, we talk about that at our retreats. Some women are like, well, I wish I had that. I wish I had that attention on the street.
Right.
And someone will be like, wow, I wish I could not have attention on the street. And it's like, it's definitely a deep conversation to be had, for sure.
Well, we're there.
I can understand both sides, for sure.
How long ago did you meet your husband?
About 6 years ago or so.
Okay. So you've been together for a long time, for the most part. Okay. So what is, from your perspective, what is a woman looking for from a man?
Depends. I can't speak for all women, but I think what I hear the most, women are looking for consistency stability, loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
but then the opposite at the same time. So I want you to be unpredictable and surprise me, but I still want you to be predictable in the sense that you're going to bring in income, or I know you're going to be here for me, or you're going to help take the kids to school or whatever, you know? So I think that it depends on every woman, but for the most part, I feel like what I've heard is that women want to know that you're going to be here when I need you, and that you're going to show up for me, and you're not just going to leave me in a tough situation.
Do you feel like you married your best friend?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We just had the conversation yesterday. Yes. One of my best friends, because I have other best friends too, but he's definitely like, he's the only best friend I sleep with. So, you know, that's different.
Right.
He's my best friend.
Right.
He's my homie, lover, friend. Like, yeah.
It's a small world. Real quick side note. I used to be in radio back in the day, in my 20s. I was on Hot 93.7, WZMX in Hartford.
Wow.
And Ace Hood came out as I was retiring. So
that's crazy.
I probably met him, but I don't quite remember. I think Khaled brought him out, if I'm not mistaken.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So small world, small business. That's my old life, though. It's a long time ago.
Small world.
I'm old. Is that your advice to someone, is to find your best friend, find someone that, how about someone that can bring you inner peace?
Yeah. I would say find someone that makes it easier, like, and who reminds you that it's all worth it. You know, because I just feel that, like, especially through the pandemic, like, that was really hard. Like, we came right back from honeymoon and we didn't even know what was going on because we were tapped out. We were just chilling and living our own little world, and freaking turned on the phone and the TV and was just like, the world's ending? Like, it was just, you know, so if I didn't have him to remind me and to just reassure me, and just, I think finding someone that just reminds you that this is all worth it.
You mentioned somewhere on your bio that you were burnt out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You became very burnt out. Was this back when you were in New York?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is at the beginning of my healing journey. I was just burnt out, just tired.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did you feel you had anxiety, depression, burnout, the whole 9 yards?
All of that. Yeah. I was acting. I was going on in auditions and constantly facing rejection and seeing my friends do well. And then grinding is putting every dollar back into my career. So not having financial freedom, not having enough resources to do the things I want, not experiencing enough joy, living for other people. Like, it's just, I just felt that it was just really getting to me. I started to really feel like I didn't even know if I wanted to do this anymore, like life in general. And that's when I felt that I was like, okay, I was really looking for answers. And that it was around that time I started looking into meditation and everything.
You didn't know if you wanted to do this, life in general. That's a big statement right there, Shelah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I struggled with self-worthiness, and so wondering, like, do I make a difference? Like, it's really important that I'm even here. Like, people would miss me, but it wouldn't be like that big of a thing. Like, just really wondering about my place in the world. Like, is there a place for me? Like, even as I mean, there's layers to this experience. As a Black person, sometimes you wonder if there's a place. Do you value? Are you valued? Are you important? Then as a Black woman, you feel that on another level. And then just as somebody who was living my life, like going through acting and not having access to finance, you just start to wonder, well, I started to wonder, like, did I want to do this? This is very, very difficult. And I don't even know. And I'm also sensitive. I'm a very extremely spiritual person, extremely tapped into the spirit world. And it was just a lot for me. I didn't know at the time that part of what I was experiencing was also me being an empath. I didn't know what that was at the time. But living in New York was a little intense for me because I feel all these energies all the time. So if I'm at a subway station and there's all these people going through all of their sadness, and it was just, I didn't have tools to deal with that at the time. And so I just was waiting in all of this, like stuff, and I did not have the tools to identify and name what I was going through. And naming is very important. If you can't name a thing, if you can't name what you're experiencing, you can't solve it, you can't shift it, you don't know. So I think that was a point where I just decided I wanted to take control of my life in a different way.
What was it that led you to meditation? Was it just a thought, or were you inspired by someone?
Well, I had one time taken a yoga class before, and I thought, I took an African yoga class in Tallahassee when I was in college. Somebody's like, there's this African yoga class, and they didn't even specify where in Africa. It was just called Africa. So I was like, okay. And I was thought the part where you were quiet was really cool, but I didn't know that was meditation. I was just like, oh, it's cool, but I didn't really think nothing of it. And then when I was in New York, one of my roommates suggested, let's go to yoga. And I thought, oh, yoga is only for skinny white women. But I went, and I realized Shavasana was the part that I resonated with the most. When we just were quiet at the end, I was like, I hadn't felt this level of calm and peace, I don't know, ever, maybe. And I just thought, I want more of this. So I almost used it as a coping mechanism at first to escape all of what was going on. I felt like I would just leave and take a vacation. I would go in meditation, and especially me, because I love creative visualizations, which are when you imagine things. For people like me who have big imaginations anyway, very creative, those really, they were attractive to me. And so I would just go. I would do what I call quantum meditation. I would go and imagine different scenarios. I would go and have conversations with people that I couldn't have in real life. And so it became a real way for me to experience an alternate reality, which really kept me going. This one was tiring. I was grinding, okay? Well, I feel like I'm hearing Gil Scott-Heron right now. What is that? Is it New York is Killing Me? Is that the poem? Do you know that poem? I think it's New York is Killing Me. But just New York is a very difficult place to live. Shout out to New Yorkers, man. They just, it's that whole, if you can make it in New York and you can make it anywhere, is absolutely true.
Yeah, I lived there for one summer. I have an episode on this podcast called Ambition is a Disease.
Mm-hmm. It can be. Everything in moderation, man.
A dog that chases its tail is ambitious.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of us can be like a hamster on a wheel, just chasing what, and that's going back to what I said earlier, where sometimes it doesn't matter at all. Because sometimes those things you think you want aren't going to bring you the fulfillment you think it will anyway.
For me, I've always been a very ambitious person. But in 2018, I had something happen. And then, so I had this let go, where everything just dropped, and it became harder to do work.
I can imagine.
And so even to this day, I have to really will myself to do work, which is the total opposite. I've always been, an assassin, the grinder, the Mamba mentality, as maybe we would call it now.
Oh, yeah.
But it feels good to let go.
It really does. Even when we first were on this whole lockdown situation, I was reminded again of I like this pace. This is slower. Maybe I felt very intuitively we're grinding, like a machine grinds. You're not a machine, you're not meant to grind. And I was just how many of us never sat down like this? And not that it was nice because it was forced, and that it's not like we just took a relaxing vacation, but on some level, it just really reminded me of the pace of our life. The pace that this society forces people to move at is extremely unhealthy.
Mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Very mechanical.
Computer.
Yeah. And so meditation is a great way to slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
Did you also study any Eastern philosophies when you were going through your transition?
Yes, I studied a bit of Buddhism. Not any in-depth or in an orthodox way, but I did study just a bit of Buddhism. I am familiar with Taoism, but very little. I am familiar somewhat with chakras, and out of respect for the place of the world where chakras came from, the ideas, like I do try to learn a little bit, but I'm really a person who just picks a little of everything, and I don't like study any one method to the degree where I would be a student of one method. No.
Yeah, you don't really have to. But I just find it so interesting. And it's such a common theme on this podcast that just so many Americans get caught up. They get stressed. They have some sort of breakdown. They have some sort of break. And what saves them is Eastern traditions.
Also, too, there's been erasure of Africans' contributions into this way of living and healing also. And I'm reminded of that because I know there's been conversations before with like, are you appropriating these cultures? And I understand, I definitely hear that. I'm like, okay, make sure that it's appreciation, not appropriation. But I bring practitioners on all the time to my retreats who are experts in these modalities, because I'm not, but Africans have been doing this also. Since we could, since centuries ago. So,
well, this piggybacks off of something you said earlier in this recording, when you said that Christianity was dispersed to African Americans.
A lot of yes, exactly.
Because there was no Christianity in Africa back in, ancient times.
No, not in the way it looks now. No, not at all. Ancient religions and ancient knowledge is like, to me, it's a remembering. In the same way, in the spirit realm, our whole life is just remembering who we are. In the same way as a species, maybe sometimes we're just going back to remember who we are and what we've already and always known.
Yeah, Africa and India are very. There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack with those two areas.
Yes, absolutely.
And all this ancient stuff is just brilliant to me. But there is a pattern that I see of people, going back to that, and that's what brings them back to being grounded, such as yourself, such as myself.
For Black people in the States, returning to the brilliance and the knowledge that came from across the entire continent of Africa is important for us. It gives us a sense of, for me, when I was in school, like, you don't learn about Black people and people of color you don't learn about them ancient peoples. You don't learn about them having wisdom, and you don't learn about them, having these great monarchs, and you don't learn about you learn about the Greco-Roman era. Everybody in the history books does not look like you. And so you have like a little Black History Month chapter, and that's it. You learn George Washington Carver made peanut butter, and that's it. You don't learn about the millions of inventions that came from Black faces. We don't learn about all of that. So I feel like we're searching for that, to be reminded that we're brilliant too, right? We're smart too. We're worthy too. We come from a lineage of brilliance and intelligence and creativity and divinity also. And sometimes we're the only ones that will remind ourselves of that. So it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't learn about that stuff until Public Enemy and KRS-One in the early 90s.
Right. Shout out to them, man.
I had to learn it from rap music. It weren't in the books at school.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just been erased.
Yeah. I love how you have your meditation mixtapes. I also have meditations on Spotify and whatnot. And so I can appreciate that. What made you want to give people your meditations?
I just thought of what I would want, and what I wanted when I first started meditating was I could only do guided meditations because of my anxiety. The silence was a little bit much for long sessions. And I wanted a voice that I could relate to. All the voices were like, these white men and white women and go on a rock and a tree. And it was like, okay, nice, but like, can I get somebody that doesn't sound like Ooh, I just want somebody that I relate to. Like, he gave me a voice that I might be familiar with. And so that's really what I did. I recorded the first meditation mixtape for beginners. And then I recorded a meditation mixtape for kids, which is grades K-5, and for teens, grades 6-12. And then I just released Black Lives Meditate, which is a meditation mixtape for healing racial trauma. And
Beautiful.
all of those can be found. You can go to ShelahMarie.com. That's my website. My meditations are available on all streaming platforms. If you just put in my name, blacklivesmeditate.com is my latest release.
And for you personally, how is the silence now?
It varies. It varies, you know. It went up and down during this whole time of craziness, but the silence now is like definitely a space where I go and I give thanks. I hone my intuition. I hone my ability to hear. I hone my gifts. I send love. I send peace to people. I commune. And so the silence is really my friend at this point. Meditation will forever be a part of my life. It's a staple. It's not just like I did it then and great. It's a small part of my everyday life. Like, I have to meditate almost every single day. And if I don't, my life is different. Everything. Making decisions in meetings, not getting upset, not getting triggered, it all stems to, did I meditate today?
It's profound. You got your husband meditating?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He loves it. He does his own thing. He has his own stuff that he reads and research in his modalities, because he more is into sonic things, hearing tones and all of that. And I'm more into like visualizing. But yeah, man, he's been really open to it, which has been very nice.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now, business-wise?
Oh, wow, that's a very interesting question.
And personal-wise.
I think, well, in 10 years, I'll definitely have 2 to 3 books out for sure, because I'm working on 2 as we speak. So, I mean, it'll definitely be at least 3. And I think the books will have changed a lot of things. I'll probably have some type of TV show, some type of thing. I'm back on TV in some way, talking about these concepts that we're talking about, bringing it on a popular level. And well, it's already there, but more for my voice. And then I'll have my kids, and me and Ace will have our kids, and we'll probably have a little house somewhere that has a studio detached somewhere in it, and just be living our quiet life. I'll probably live a kind of a quiet life and do my public things, but be really quiet and just be enjoying my life like I am now.
Will you have a sundress on?
Sometimes. Depends.
All right, great. I think there's a lot of gems in this recording, and I hope people pick them up. So
They will. This was amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
yes, a special thank you to everyone supporting this podcast and this inner peace movement. If you want to support, please join us over there, patreon.com, or just hit the link in the description and see if you want to join this movement, get exclusive content, and help us move forward. I ask you to share this recording with someone you feel needs to hear it. And I'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.